Welcome to Macomb Paranormal Investigations and Research. Tonight, we travel to Toledo, Ohio, to investigate one of the Midwest's most unsettling locations, Mortuary Manor, an old funeral home, a place where grief once entered through the front doors and silence left through the back, a building where families said their final goodbyes, where bodies were prepared for burial, where tears fell in waiting rooms, where prayers were whispered in dimly lit halls, and according to many who have entered since, a place where some spirits may have never left. Tonight, we explore the history, the tragedy, the reported deaths, the stories of suicide tied to the property, and the paranormal activity that has made Mortuary Manor one of Ohio's most talked about haunted locations. Let's dive into the shadows. To understand why this place draws so much attention, we must first understand what it once was. Long before it became known as Mortuary Manor, the building served as a working funeral home in Toledo. For decades, people came here during the darkest moments of their lives. When a loved one passed unexpectedly, when a family needed comfort, when final arrangements had to be made, when grief became real. Funeral homes are unlike ordinary buildings. They witness the emotional weight of human life at its most vulnerable. Joy rarely enters these spaces, but sorrow, shock, heartbreak, regret, guilt, and mourning arrive almost daily. For years, the building became tied to death in every form. Elderly passings, sudden tragedies, accidents, illness. Children mourned too soon. Parents buried too early. Husbands and wives separated by time. Families changed forever. Every hallway held stories. Every room held endings. And some believe places absorb what happens inside them. Many paranormal researchers call this emotional imprinting, the idea that intense human experiences can leave something behind. Not necessarily a ghost in the traditional sense, but energy, memory, atmosphere, a kind of recording pressed into walls, floors, and air itself. If there is any truth to that theory, then few places would gather more emotional force than a funeral home. Mortuary Manor was not built as entertainment. It was built for mourning. That may be why investigators feel the location carries a heaviness difficult to explain. When visitors first enter, many describe the same sensation: a sudden stillness, pressure in the chest, unease that appears without reason. The sense of walking into a place where silence means something. Some say it feels as if they are being watched before they ever begin an investigation. Others say they hear movement in rooms they know are empty, footsteps above them, doors shifting, whispers in distant halls, noises that stop the moment they are acknowledged. But before we explore those claims, we must address the darker stories tied to the property. Over time, local lore surrounding Mortuary Manor grew beyond funeral home history. Stories began circulating of deaths connected to the building itself. Some claim staff members passed unexpectedly. Others speak of tragic personal losses involving individuals associated with the property. There are also repeated rumors of suicides connected to the location or its history. As with many haunted places, separating documented fact from legend can be difficult. Records become fragmented. Stories are retold. Details shift over time. But in paranormal history, rumor often becomes part of the haunting itself. Even when facts are uncertain, people continue reporting the same feeling, that the building carries deep emotional pain. And where pain lingers, ghost stories follow. Some investigators believe suicides, sudden deaths, or unresolved emotional trauma may create conditions often associated with hauntings. Whether that means spirits remain or whether intense human tragedy affects how people perceive a place remains unknown. But locations marked by despair often develop a presence all their own. Inside Mortuary Manor, certain rooms are said to be far more active than others. The preparation rooms are among the most discussed. These were once the working spaces where the dead were cared for before burial. In many old funeral homes, such rooms were hidden from public view. Families gathered in parlors, while private work happened elsewhere. Visitors now report cold spots that appear suddenly and vanish just as quickly. Equipment batteries draining without explanation. Voices captured on recorders where no one was present. Knocks responding to questions. Heavy feelings of sadness or anxiety. Some say they feel a person standing directly behind them. When they turn around, no one is there. Then there are the viewing rooms. These were spaces where families gathered beside open caskets, shared memories, and said goodbye. Investigators claim these rooms carry emotional energy unlike any other part of the building. People have reported tears forming for no reason. Strong feelings of grief despite no personal connection to the deceased. Sudden scents of flowers, perfume, cigar smoke, or embalming chemicals. Apparitions seen briefly near doorways. Chairs moving slightly on their own. Some believe these are spirits returning to moments of farewell. Others believe the rooms simply hold decades of sorrow impressed into them. The hallways of Mortuary Manor are another focus of paranormal claims. Long corridors in old buildings create natural unease. Shadows stretch strangely. Sounds travel unpredictably. Light bends in odd ways. But witnesses insist something more occurs here. Shadow figures are among the most repeated reports. Tall, dark forms glimpsed crossing hallways. A human shape standing at the end of a corridor before disappearing. Movement seen in peripheral vision. Investigators walking toward an empty doorway, moments after seeing someone standing there. Shadow figure reports are common in haunted locations, but when multiple people independently describe similar encounters, interest grows. Could these be tricks of low light and expectation? Possibly. Could something else be occurring? That question keeps people coming back. Another area often discussed is the basement. Nearly every old funeral home basement carries mystery. Storage rooms, mechanical equipment, old supplies, forgotten objects, low ceilings, and limited light. In Mortuary Manor, many describe the basement as the most oppressive part of the building. People report nausea, sudden headaches, the urge to leave immediately, unexplained touches, sounds of dragging objects, whispers too low to understand. Some investigators refuse to remain there alone. Others say that is exactly where the strongest evidence has been captured. Spirit boxes have reportedly produced names, pleas, and fragmented responses. EVP sessions have captured what some interpret as breathing, moans, or whispered words. Of course, audio evidence is always debated. Old buildings make noise. Electronics create interference. Human minds seek patterns. But for those who have stood in the dark and heard a voice answer back, the debate feels less certain. Then there is the staircase. In many haunted buildings, staircases become centers of activity. They connect levels, symbolize transition, and naturally amplify sound. At Mortuary Manor, footsteps are often heard ascending or descending when no one is present. Investigators have rushed toward the sound only to find emptiness. Some claim to feel someone brush past them on the stairs. Others hear multiple steps, as if several unseen people are moving together. If funeral processions once carried caskets through these routes, some believe the energy of repeated movement remains. One of the most disturbing themes reported here is emotional manipulation. Visitors sometimes enter calm and leave angry, anxious, or deeply sad. Others arrive skeptical and suddenly feel panic. Paranormal investigators often debate whether locations can influence emotion or whether tense environments naturally trigger psychological reactions. Either way, Mortuary Manor seems to affect people strongly. Some have ended investigations early. Some refuse to return. Others become obsessed with returning again and again. That pattern itself is fascinating. Why are people drawn to places that frighten them? Perhaps because haunted locations offer what modern life often lacks: mystery. And Mortuary Manor is full of it. Now let us speak carefully about the suicide stories. Many haunted locations develop legends of self-inflicted deaths because such tragedies carry emotional weight and unanswered questions. In some cases, stories are true. In others, they grow through rumor. Mortuary Manor has long been associated with claims that one or more suicides occurred involving people connected to the building or property. Whether fully documented or partly legend, the repeated presence of this story shapes how visitors experience the location. They arrive expecting sadness, expecting unrest, expecting spirits who died in despair. Expectation can influence perception, but it can also draw attention to subtle things otherwise ignored. Some investigators say they have received responses during sessions referencing regret, sorrow, or wanting help. If genuine, these would be among the most heartbreaking forms of communication. If misinterpretation, they still reveal how deeply the human mind responds to tragedy. There are also reports of a woman seen in the building. Descriptions vary, but many mention a female figure in older-style clothing glimpsed near doorways or upper floors. She appears briefly, then vanishes. Some associate her with mourning. Others believe she may be tied to a family member, former resident, or grieving widow who spent time there during services. No identity has ever been confirmed. There are stories, too, of a male presence described as stern, protective, or territorial. Some say equipment malfunctions whenever disrespectful behavior occurs. Loud, joking, mocking language, or careless conduct is said to trigger sudden disturbances. Whether spirit or coincidence, many seasoned investigators agree on one thing: respect matters in places tied to death. Mockery often creates trouble, if only among the living. As we investigate mentally tonight, imagine standing inside Mortuary Manor after midnight. The building is dark, except for flashlights. Old wood creaks somewhere above. A hallway stretches ahead. You ask into the silence, "Is anyone here with us?" Nothing. Then from the next room, 3 knocks. You move closer. The air grows colder. Your flashlight flickers. You ask again, "Do you want to communicate?" A whisper comes from behind you. You spin around. No one stands there. This is the kind of experience that has built the legend of Mortuary Manor. Some leave convinced spirits remain. Some leave believing fear created everything. And some leave unsure, which is often the most unsettling outcome of all. Because uncertainty follows you home. You replay the sound, the shadow, the voice, the feeling someone stood inches away. And you ask yourself a question difficult to answer. What did I really experience? From a historical perspective, funeral homes are powerful paranormal settings because they combine 3 forces: death, emotion, Repetition. Many bodies passed through. Many families grieved there. Many rituals repeated there over decades. If any environment could develop a reputation for haunting, this would be one. Mortuary Manor stands as more than a spooky building. It represents how humans process death itself. We fear what we cannot see. We wonder where people go. We sense meaning in places where endings occurred. Haunted funeral homes touch something primal in us. They remind us of the final door every person must someday face. That alone is enough to create chills. But what if there is more? What if some consciousness remains? What if grief calls something back? What if memory lingers in architecture? What if certain places become thin spots where the past brushes against the present? Mortuary Manor invites those questions and offers no easy answers. For investigators, the location teaches an important lesson. Not every sound is paranormal. Not every feeling is supernatural. But not every experience can be dismissed either. The best approach is humility. Observe carefully. Question honestly. Respect the location. Respect the dead. And admit when mystery remains. As we close tonight's investigation, picture the front doors of Mortuary Manor, shut tight in the dark. Inside are empty rooms where mourners once cried, hallways where footsteps are still heard, stairs climbed by people who carried both flowers and coffins, basements where whispers are reported, parlors where final goodbyes once echoed, and perhaps, if the stories are true, a few who never truly left. This has been Macomb Paranormal Investigations and Research. Until next time, keep your recorder charged, keep your courage close, and if you ever hear footsteps in an empty funeral home, be careful before assuming you are alone.